So the offboarding workflow has basically been refactored. We've made it more modular. So, there's things like grabbing the user details, update ticket already existed, but then a lot of these can just be copied and pasted into a workflow should you want to steal some of this and duplicate it. But it will basically go through, and a lot of the functionality is the same. The form basically matches what was done in the V2. So I'll go ahead and just run real quick. One of the key things to note that came from the V2 was the additional field to select an Azure AD user so that we're not relying on matching logic, but that's been in the other one as well. But you'll see here it's basically the same as the V2 version. So I can go ahead and kick that off. I've run it quite a few times. It takes roughly 5 minutes. This environment specifically is set up as a hybrid environment. So it's using the Entra Cloud Sync, which actually that's one of the new pieces of functionality. Will actually kick off the Cloud Sync if AD Sync is not available. So while that runs, I'll just kind of go over what the ticket's going to look like whenever it runs. So this is one of the test ones that I was running earlier. So we can see here, it's going to start with just listing off the inputs that were provided and then a link to the workflow execution result. And then it will also state that it commenced. And then this is part of a different crate, so these two can be ignored. But then once it gets to the end, it basically gives an entire summary. So we can see here, the offboard completed, the user was removed from these groups, couldn't be removed from this group because it was dynamic group. And then we have a log of the automation. So basically for each individual task or sub workflow in this workflow, it outputs an entry and then it'll tell you what happened. So like specifically here, where it failed to remove that user from the dynamic group, we can see that clearly listed here. So let's see, let's go ahead and check on this one. So right now it's going through the change password. I don't know if anyone has any questions while we're watching this run. Yes.
Why did we do a new offboard crate?
Because there was a lot of technical debt, and one of the things that we really wanted to focus on was getting a lot of these sub workflows remade so that they're easier to use and just built up to best practices that we follow now. One thing worth mentioning too, although it's not available in this result just yet, I can show off that automation log. So each of these tasks has an alias that will typically start with log, and that's where we're pulling that information. At the end, that all gets combined, and then you can see the individual entries. You can also quickly see what errors were encountered, and then you can see the sub-automation log if it was a sub-workflow. Let's see. So yeah, that's kind of what there is to talk about with it. And it looks like, yeah, so right now we're on the exchange actions. This was actually one of the bigger reported bugs. For on-prem, in the previous version, the mail nickname was not being set whenever the on-premise user was having the gal hidden for them in an AD sync scenario. That's now handled. So that should work. That was one of the most reported issues with the previous one.
What does someone have to do if they want to start using the new one?
So they'll just go into the crate marketplace and they'll just look for the one named M365 user offboarding. One thing to note too, I did keep all the same inputs. So if somebody's using like a wrapper workflow, they can easily replace it.